morning, everybody. Shel Brodnax here with Stager Talk. I am so excited this morning to have Vern Yip on the show. Welcome, Vern.
Thank you. So nice to be with you.
It is so exciting to have you here. I have to tell you a quick little side story. Back in the early 2000s, when Trading Spaces was first on, I watched religiously the amount of DIY projects I had going on personal in my home was just so much fun, but so much inspiration from you. And I just watched a new episode, one of your episodes, and it was so adorable. That poor lady that was trying to make the light out of the ball with the yarn.
Yarn ball. Yeah. It was a lot of work.
That's what we say is bless her heart. She tried so hard.
She did. She put in an A+ effort.
She did. That was totally hilarious. But yours was perfect.
Well, I've had a little more practice.
A little bit more practice.
When you do something for a living, right?
Absolutely. So everybody who's joining us, welcome aboard. We like this to be very interactive, and I try to get over to the chat as much as I can. So if you have a question, throw it out there. If I'm able to see it, great. If not, it might mean that the answer is coming up soon because I'm already going to be covering that. So go ahead and just pop them in as everybody's loading on right now. But we're going to go ahead and get started. So we do have some questions that were posed by our members. So we're just going to dig right in and get to it.
Okay.
People want to know, is it worth it to take a job when you know that client, seller, when it pertains to staging, has proudly overstyled their home and they fancy themselves a designer?
Oh my gosh. Well, I am sure that is a pretty common problem to come across for a lot of stagers across the entire country. And I would say yes. I mean, in many ways, the great thing about this profession is that you're trying to help somebody get to an end goal. You're trying to help them get to where they want to go. And although, they may have some pushback, they may have some resistance, ultimately, I take pride in being a designer, and I think stagers probably take great pride in being stagers because it's not just about making something look good. At the end of the day, you realize you're providing a service that's really going to benefit somebody's life, that's going to really improve the quality of their life, and that they're really going to hopefully appreciate. So yes, push through.
Push through. So leads me to my next question. How do you push through? If you have somebody that's resisting, they're hiring stagers because they believe they're the professional, they have the knowledge and the know-how to be able to do it all, but yet, no, we're not going to remove this, or no, I'm not going to do that. Do you have any tips to give everybody to kind of get those sellers over the edge to agree to that, to do what the stager's asking them to do?
Yeah, well, so I'm going to ask everybody to picture something mentally. Can you picture trying to lead a horse to water that doesn't want to go, right? You're pulling, and that horse is just resisting. So instead of picturing that, picture getting the horse into the same boat that you're in and rowing upstream together. I think it's really about the delivery method of the message oftentimes, because what we have to realize is that people have such a personal attachment to their own things, as they should. I always say your home should be a physical manifestation of you. It should not have to live up to somebody else's standards. It should have to live up to your standards of what you love and what's important to you. That changes entirely when you decide to put your house on the market and try to sell your home, because your home is no longer supposed to be a physical manifestation of you. Your home, for you to get to your goal, is supposed to be a physical manifestation for as many people as possible, so that people can really see how they can utilize a space, so that they can envision their proudest and finest moments of their lives unfolding in that home with their family and friends. And I think it's about delivering that message to whoever it is that you're trying to help, and get them to understand that this is not a referendum on selections they've made. You're not passing judgment on their style. I mean, you may even say, I personally love what you've done, and I personally love your style, but we're trying to reach a goal here that's beyond just creating something that's personal for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're speaking my language on the horse analogy. I'm an avid horse rider, and I do a lot of business coaching for stagers, and every single analogy I use is about horsemanship, and you can literally, like you said, visualize this. And once they visualize it, they totally get it.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what I think, try to do. When you're trying to help somebody in terms of staging their home, you're trying to say, look, this is 100% not personal. I'm here. We are in this boat together. We are rowing in this, upstream together. And for me to row as efficiently for you as possible, I need your help. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody should feel like they're involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And even telling the seller, hey, this color of sofa, I can't stand this color personally. However, for this property with everything that's in it, it's perfect. So it's definitely not about the stager's style or the homeowners at that point. So great advice. I love that.
I'm sure very few stagers actually make sure that every home reflects their personal style. I mean, I don't think you would be a very successful stager if you made every home look like your personal style. That's not the goal at the end of the day.
Yep, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit. Somebody wants to know about what's going to replace gray.
Oh my gosh. Well, first off, great question. Gray has been around for a while now, and I personally don't see it going anywhere. I don't think it's going to be nearly as rampant in every home. But the reason why gray has been such a phenomenon is that a warm gray, especially cool grays, not so much, but a warm gray goes with everything. I defy anybody to tell me a color that warm gray does not go with. So, I think for that reason, it's been around for a while, and I don't see it going anywhere. That being said, I do see some colors really kind of bubbling up and being used extensively in home design. One of those colors is sort of like a deeper gold. So we're not looking at, like a butter yellow or a pale yellow or a pastel yellow. We're talking about a gold that has some real girth, some real depth. So, almost in that range of citrine or mustard, or, it's really kind of taken off, and we're seeing it everywhere. And by the way, it pairs beautifully with warm gray.
I'm so glad you said that because I'm remodeling my kitchen right now because I'm fixing to sell my home. And I just did the cabinets gray and warm gray. And then the walls, the gray that I originally picked, I put it up and on part of the wall, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate this. It was really throwing yellow. And I actually did a color consult with a friend of mine, Sandra Reyes, and I FaceTimed with her in the kitchen. And she's like, oh, sweetie, you're so sweet. No, 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 no. This is not the color for you. So she actually did her color consult for me and sent me some options. And I picked them out last weekend and painted a little bit. And it was beautiful. Night and day difference.
Great, great, great.
Yeah. Colors are different.
It's always good to know when to ask for help.
It is, because she could have saved me a whole lot of money. I'm going to tell everybody out there, if you're not sure about colors, pay for a color consultation, because literally every can of paint that runs $30 to $50, you go out and buy a gallon of it and you put it up. You've got your time, your energy, and your money, and sometimes they just don't work. So it's really well worth it to consult a professional on that.
Yeah, I would say even forget the cost of paint. Yes, paint can add up quickly, but your time or the time of a painter, I mean, goodness, no, not worth it. So
for sure.
So that's bubbling up, and then we're seeing a broad spectrum of greens really bubbling up. And again, we're seeing a specific range of greens. We're not seeing necessarily softer greens. We're not seeing like the fern or the moss. What we're seeing, again, are greens with a little more depth, a little more girth in a broader spectrum. So we're seeing emeralds, we're seeing olives, we're seeing anything like Kelly. We're seeing a lot of greens that have some real substance to them. So, I mean, will those trends last? I don't think they're going to have the staying power that gray has had, but
sure.
they definitely are bubbling up.
Awesome. Love hearing about it. What about white kitchens? Where's that going these days?
White kitchens are the kitchen cabinet colors. That's the equivalent of gray. It had a huge moment about 30 years ago, and it just sort of stayed. And I don't think white kitchens are going anywhere. But white kitchens, should, people are more sophisticated now in their understanding of white, because I think it's very easy for people to think all whites are created equal. And that is simply not the case. White kitchens today are a much warmer white. And you will notice as white kind of becomes a little warmer, it becomes a little more timeless, a little more sophisticated, while still looking fresh. When white kitchens kind of came up, a lot of the more sort of accessible, less expensive white kitchens that were put in really had a cool bluish undertone to them. And those don't, unfortunately, last too long. They don't look timeless. They look institutional, unfortunately. That being said, we're also seeing, we're seeing a lot of gray cabinets. We're seeing a lot of black cabinets. Black cabinets are particularly kind of poking through, because people are beginning to understand that they can use black cabinets and not have a dark kitchen. If you use black cabinets and you have white subway tile, for example, and a white quartz countertop, your kitchen can still appear very sort of light and bright. But that's a different customer entirely from a white kitchen. A white kitchen is still going to be sort of ubiquitously appealing to the broadest number of people.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about budgets. And especially, I think you're the perfect person to answer this, because trading spaces is notorious for doing things on a budget. A lot of times, I always have a go-to saying that I go to with people when they're talking about, why is staging expensive? And I said, well, that's kind of relative. Stagers even get into the industry and think, I always tell them, look, you're going to have to invest in your business, because Ty and Carter are not going to show up on your stages with their shirts off and make you a built-in for $50. It just doesn't happen. It does not happen. But that's kind of my go-to trading spaces statement when I talk to stagers wanting to get into the industry. But when you're on a tight budget, what's best not to skimp on? And what can you do to improvise and get things for less cost? What areas?
Well, we always say, I think accessories are a great way to save. I think even if you can't access necessarily inexpensive accessories, or they're just certain accessories that you just really have to have, I always say fewer the better, especially when they're larger scale. Fewer and larger, but that's a good way to kind of save a little bit. I think it's really difficult to sort of skimp on upholstered items, because I think inexpensive upholstered items oftentimes convey that immediately. So I think it's easier to sort of save on case goods, sort of easier to save on side tables and those kinds of things. So when it comes to your actual home and sort of advising, this may not be necessarily as pertainable to the stagers, but when it comes to your kitchen, for example, I always say that absolutely do not skimp on your countertops. I think countertops are the workhorse of the kitchen, and you can't skimp on those. But sometimes, as people have oftentimes seen on trading spaces, you can make a big impactful change with not a lot of money. There have been a number of kitchens that have been sanded and painted with new hardware put on that look dramatically different. Even something as simple as changing out a faucet, for example. I think dated kitchen faucets look really inexpensive sometimes, and I think just even spending the money to have a significant good looking updated faucet in the kitchen can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. And I'll give another tip for that kitchen faucet, because in my kitchen, we just put in countertops and had a beautiful faucet, a big neck that comes over, and then you can take your sprayer and move it, put it in the right position. Make sure that you install it in the right location, because especially if you have a double sink and you put it square in the middle, when you turn it on, it doesn't quite reach to the middle of either one of the sinks on the side. Now, you'd think the installers that had experience with this would have said, we've seen this before, and maybe you should put it to one side or the other, but they did not. And so now I'm stuck with that. But always make sure you think it and rethink it when you're doing something that's very permanent.
Yeah, no, that's very true. As soon as that hole is drilled in that countertop, you're committed.
It is. And my husband looked at me the other day and he says, did you notice this? And I'm like, yeah, I noticed it. It was my mistake. Just let it go. Just, it is what it is. So what, in your mind, what would you say the difference is between decorating and staging is? I mean, obviously one's for selling, one's not, but staging has really evolved over the last 15 years since I've been in the industry, where it used to be very sparse and now we're getting so much better looks. It's really grown up.
Yeah. Well, I think there, in many ways, there's very little difference. You know, stagers and interior designers all grapple with the same kinds of things. They grapple with space planning, for example, and making sure that the room is laid out in the best way possible. Um, I would say that the number one difference is that as a designer, I'm typically, and not always, but I'm typically working for a specific client, and I'm trying to appeal to their specific wants, both functionally and aesthetically. I'm spending an extensive amount of time trying to make it look very, very personal for them. And I'm sure stagers spend a lot of time also working not for a homeowner necessarily to appeal to their specific needs, but you know, they're trying to create an environment that's going to get the job done. And they may be working very, very closely with the builder, or they may be working very closely with the homeowner to achieve that goal. I do think, you know, sort of touching upon what we started this conversation with, you had mentioned that, you know, a lot of stagers grapple with clients who consider themselves, you know, designers themselves, or, you know, are really giving a lot of pushback. And I think, you know, it's not that interior designers don't have to grapple with that. We do too. But at the end of the day, if somebody's going to live there, then you have to be respectful of the fact that this is going to be their home. You know, it's reflective of their wants and their needs. And I think stagers are trying to sort of achieve a different goal.
Yep, absolutely. So what was your biggest design mistake? I clued everybody in on mine with the kitchen. What is your biggest design mistake you've ever made, and what did you learn from it?
My biggest mistake, I mean, I have made a lot of big design mistakes. I would say, you know, I learned this kind of the hard way. You know, a lot of designers, myself included, end up buying things that they just fall in love with. And, you know, I feel like if I've space planned it out, I know it's going to work, that it's all going to be fine. But I sometimes, you know, in the past at least, forgot to measure how I'm going to get this thing from point A to point B, negotiating staircases, negotiating elevators, negotiating hallways with tight corners. There have been a few incidences where I've had to have feet of furniture sawn off or pieces taken apart and rebuilt into a space because I had sort of felt like I had ticked the boxes, like, oh, I've space planned this out. I know it's going to be the perfect size for this room. Well, it may be the perfect size for that room, but you still have to get it into that room.
This is very true. That's happened to me as well. We have to cut things off to get them out the door when we were moving one time. And because I believe we brought it in boxes, put it together, and then it's together in your living room, and now you're moving it out. We had to take it apart and dismantle it. It was crazy stuff.
I still have a sofa in my master bedroom. When we moved into this house, we had to have it lifted from the outside and through some second story doors to get it into the home. And I am dreading moving and having to like reverse that process. So
I hear you. So everybody wants to know, how did you get your start as a designer? Was it something you always knew you wanted to do, or did you fall into it? How'd that happen?
well, you know, I have an interesting story. My parents were Chinese immigrants. They fled China during the Cultural Revolution, which is when the communists invaded China. And we came to this great country when I was 2 months old. And being a good, obedient Chinese son, like most good, obedient Chinese children, um, I wanted to make my parents happy. And like most Chinese parents, they want a doctor in the family. So they basically said, hey, you know, you have two choices in life. You can become a doctor or you can become a doctor. Up to you. Um, so I was a pre-med student at the University of Virginia, where I studied chemistry and economics and worked every spring, summer, and winter break at the National Institutes of Health at the Transmitted and Transfused Viruses Laboratory. I was working on asymptomatic HIV and hepatitis C, which is a unusual background for most designers. But every day I found myself going into work and, criticizing the shade of yellow on the walls, the fact that we had to work under fluorescent lighting. And 2 weeks before medical school was about to start, I finally worked up enough courage to tell my mom that I couldn't do it, that I'd known all my life that I'm supposed to be an architect, I'm supposed to be a designer. So several months later, I ended up at Georgia Tech, where I got my Master's of Architecture and MBA. I got the MBA to make my mom feel better about the whole process. And 6 months into my first architecture intern job, my mom had given me some great advice, and her advice, she had sort of instilled this in me very, very early on. She said, make sure you're the first person at work every morning and the last person to leave. And no matter what you're doing, put, incredible pride in it and make sure you do the best job possible. So the head of interior design, this is the largest firm in the Southeast, came to my desk and she said, I've noticed you, I've noticed how hard you work, and I've noticed how beautiful your drawings are. I'd love to give you a break in interior design. She said, I'd love to give you the corporate headquarters for Disney Cruise to design. And this is just as Disney was launching their cruise division. And it was the break of a lifetime. And so from that point forward, I ended up moving forward with both interior design and architecture. And in 1999, I went out on my own. I left the private firm world and started my own firm. And in the year 2000, I won Southeast Designer of the Year, which got my name and face in a bunch of magazines and publications. And one of those magazines landed on the desk of the production company that was putting together the first season of Trading Spaces. So I've been very, very fortunate and very, very lucky that key people in my life at key moments have seen something in me and opened doors for me. And that I was smart enough to actually walk through, because I'm sure there have been quite a few doors I should have walked through that I didn't.
I love that story. That is just, it's breath. I mean, first of all, I have other Chinese friends who've told me the same thing about their parents. It's like, oh no, oh no, there's choice. There's no choice. We need to make the parents happy.
Yeah.
But undoubtedly, a lot of them, just as you, worked up the courage, and then of course their parents are so proud of them anyway, and it all worked out. So I love it, and we're so fortunate that you did this, because you have so much to give. And I know that you've been one of our most requested speakers at RESACon, by the way, just to let you know that. So we are super happy to have you. We're going to start wrapping some things up now. We've got a couple more questions for you. What do you do for fun? Everybody just wants to know, what do you do for fun?
Well, as some people may know, maybe some people don't, I am a dad. My husband and I have two kids, 7 and 8, and it has been the ride of my life. Honestly, it's the most incredible thing to be a parent, for me at least, and that's a lot of fun, and always is a lot of fun. And our family loves to travel. We have traveled all over the world together. Last summer, our daughter she's a Francophile. I don't know why. I mean, I love France too, but she is a total Francophile, and she had been begging and begging to go to Paris. She's only 7, but she's known since she was probably 3 that she's going to design dresses, and she's been very consistent with that. And so we decided to take a month and go to Europe and explore France and just make sure that that's really, what she wanted to do, because she's insistent that she's going to move there. And of course she loved it. But the greatest revelation for me from that experience was that, it was the first time since they were little babies that we had spent basically 24 hours a day with them, 7 days a week for that length of period, because, your kids get up and they go to school, right, and you don't see them during the day. You see them on the weekends, but not, you don't have an entire month where you're seeing them 24/7. And what was so interesting about that trip is that my husband and I discovered that we not only love our kids dearly, which we knew before, but that we actually like them. They are just fun people to be with, and we enjoy doing the same things. We enjoy going out to eat. We enjoy going to museums. They're both very culturally aware and culturally sensitive. They love exploring new places and meeting new people. And so it was just fun, it was just fun, fun family time. And I would say that that's my number one joy in life. Number two, we have 4 dogs. We live with over 500 pounds of dog, all adopted. I'm a big dog person, and dogs are a big part of my life and a big joy in my life.
I love that. We have a dog too. Her name's Paisley. She's the smartest dog I've ever had. And
Uh,
I've had a lot of dogs. I did dog rescue for about 25 years, and I literally had hundreds of rescues came through our home where you foster them for a while and then place them for adoption. And Paisley, we call her P, so smart, wicked smart. They're just such a joy. And now I have the horse, so I love him as well. And it's so rewarding, especially to have your kids grow up with dogs and animals, so they have a healthy respect for them, and they're so therapeutic.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I have great admiration for people who foster dogs, because I don't know that I really don't know how you people do it, how you give up dogs. It's like such a selfless act. You pour your time and energy into
Yeah.
helping this dog, and then you send it off to a home. It must be so difficult to do that. But
It was the thing that they told me up front was, because I saw the same thing. I said, "How am I going to do this?" And they said, "Look, if you keep them all, you can't help anymore."
yeah, oh, that's good.
That was the thing. Now, of course, I worked in German Shepherd rescue for a lot of years, so my first one I kept. I'm not going to lie. Look, he was so sick when I got him. And when you get an animal that is so desperately ill and underweight and neglected, and then you nurse it back to health, you're like, yeah, you're not going anywhere. You're mine. So Henley stayed with me until he passed away, and I loved it. But the rest of them, you're right. And literally hundreds of them we've placed. But it's very rewarding to see them and to follow up with them and know that they're doing well in their forever home. So kudos to anybody who does rescue. We all love you for what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So let's do some rapid fire questions. We've got these for you. These are always fun. And then we'll have one final question. Coke or Pepsi?
Oh, Coke. No, Pepsi.
Diet or regular?
What? I'm actually not a soda guy, to be truthful. I don't drink soda.
Jif or Skippy?
Oh, I don't eat either.
You're not a peanut butter person.
I am a peanut butter person, but I don't eat either.
Either of those. So phone call or text do you prefer?
Depends on what it is. If it's work related, text is always nice, but I always think phone call is more heartfelt when you're talking to family and friends.
There you go. Mac or PC?
Mac.
Cake or pie?
Pie all day long.
Give it up for the pie. I'm a pie girl.
Yes.
I love it.
I could skip cake for the rest of my life, but pie I gotta have.
I'm into it. Totally. I feel the same way. Mayo or Miracle Whip?
Oh, neither.
Neither. Oh, very good. Chicken or steak?
Chicken.
Hair dryer or natural drying?
Oh, look at this. Look at this work of art here. This is not achievable through natural drying, unfortunately.
There you go. Big party or small gathering?
Small gathering, 100% all day long.
Awesome. So my last question, Vern, tell me something I will always remember.
Something that you will always remember. I would say it's important when you are thinking about your personal home, not necessarily from a staging standpoint, but from your personal home. When you walk through your front door, if you are not immediately rejuvenated, re-energized, if you're not wanting to be there more so than any luxury property or 5-star resort, then something is wrong. And you should spend the time and energy to fix it, because you spend way too much time in your home. And it's oftentimes where the most important moments of your life unfold with your dearest family and friends. So it's a crime to not walk through your front door and feel like this is the place that nurtures me and takes care of me and that I love, and I love being there. And, I just think there's too many people who walk through the front door and just be like, oh, there's shoes on the floor and coats hanging on the banister and the light bulbs out and whatever. There are so many things that you can do to sort of fix those those issues. So get your home to a place where it is the place you want to be more so than any other place on planet Earth.
I love that. And I'm going to save that because my husband needs to hear it. So I don't get resistance on things that I want to do. I don't understand really why husbands argue, because they're just going to do what you want them to do in the long run anyway. So let's just skip all the arguing and just make it beautiful. That's what I think.
More efficient process, right?
Exactly, right? Who wants to argue about it? Just going to do it anyway. So Vern, stay on after I disconnect everybody or hang up with the show. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. That's about all the time that we have today because Vern's got other things he's got to get to. If you're on the fence about getting to RESACon, jump off that fence. Go to resaconvention.com. Sign up today. We still have tickets left. It's going to be an amazing, fantastic event. The industry awards are still going on right now. I think you have another day or two, a couple days to be able to vote for that. So we'll get that wrapped up, and then we're going to start announcing our top 10 professional stagers and then announce all the winners in Vegas at RESACon in July. So again, July 26th, 27th, and 28th at the M Resort in beautiful Las Vegas. And then we're going to actually take everybody on a tour to the Las Vegas market and have a tour there for everybody who's buying wholesale these days. Vern, stay on with me. Thank you again. It was such a pleasure. Everybody else, until then, happy staging.